Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, coming to you 6 days a week as we interview whitetail experts and hear their traditions and personal stories of the hunt. Learn more about the latest gear, discover proven tips, and the latest strategies so you can make your next hunt a success. Now, here's your host, Bruce Hutchin.
Whitetail Rendezvous is pleased to announce a partnership with GoHunt.com. Who's GoHunt.com? Well, if you're a DIY hunter, you need the information at GoHunt.com/insider. Why? Because it provides 4,200 profiles, every unit, every species, and every season. Furthermore, they give in-depth analysis, interactive maps, unit access, and seasonal trends. Draws are very important, and they give you the most accurate information in the business. All this is available when you go to GoHunt.com/insider. Make sure you use promo code WR when you join Insider. You'll get a $50 gift card for GoHunt.com Gear Shop. Remember, when you become a member of GoHunt.com/insider, you're going to get a $50 gift card to Go Hunt Gear Shop. What's in the gear shop? The best gear that you can buy for hunting the West. All in all, if you're hunting out West in 2018, GoHunt.com/insider is where you need to be to get all the research information. When you use promo code WR, Whitetail Rendezvous receives a small commission from GoHunt.com. Hi, folks. Bruce Hutchin, your host at Whitetail Rendezvous. And I'm on with Matt Dye this morning. He's with Land and Legacy. He and Adam Keith started Land and Legacy a while back, and they're just doing gangbusters. And they do land management, but it's a heck of a lot more than that. So we just got together and said, let's do a little series this spring, and that's what we're doing. And today is part one, and this is land management. Part two is going to come up later on, and we're going to talk about food plots with Land and Legacy. But today we're going to break it down into three parts. We're going to break it down into one, why land management, two, boots on the ground, and three, the plan. And it'll be 30 minute segments, so I'm going to break them up into three different segments for your listening to make it easier, so you don't have to listen to the whole thing straight through or wonder, I want to get back to that place. So we're going to make it easy. So Matt Dye joins us. And Matt, I'm so excited to have you back on the show and to be working on the project and see where it goes, because you guys are just doing a great job across the United States with your company, Land and Legacy.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate you having us back on and bringing Land and Legacy into this, because this is what we do. We're pumped to be able to work on properties across the nation and share hopefully valuable information with people who are interested in working in their habitat, improving the habitat, doing it with a conservation mindset, and making a difference to really improve the habitat for years to come, but also improve it for hunting aspects too. So I think what you've got going on here with this little series, land management series, food plot series, is a great idea. We're happy to be a part of it and hope that your listeners get some good information from it as well, and get out in the habitat and do some great work and improve their hunting on their properties.
And folks, at any time, if you have questions of me after you listen to the show and Matt, you can reach me at whitetailrendezvous@gmail.com. How would you like people to reach out to you, Matt?
Yeah, if you guys have any questions about land management, any aspect of it, feel free to email us at info@landandlegacy.tv. We'll get that email and respond to you. And this can be any questions from, whether it's timber management, food plot management, how to develop a sanctuary or good road system, anything, or just consultation services as well. We would be happy to take time and share our information with you. We have that outlet, or you can go on to our Facebook page, Land and Legacy, or Instagram, send questions through there. We will respond and be happy to take some time with you guys.
Well, Professor Matt, class is in session, so let's talk about why land management.
Land management. That's such a great question. And honestly, Bruce, I think so many people ask that question. Why do I need to do land management? And I think it's important to note at the very beginning, why land management and most properties that we're on are revolving around whitetail deer. And it's important to note that whitetail deer are a generalist species. So what that means is they're extremely adaptable. They have a certain habitat type and features to that habitat that is very specific to them, and that's when they dwell and honestly prosper the most in that specific habitat. However, because they're adaptable, we see them living in extreme conditions. We see them living in backyards. We see them living in cities. We see them living in very unproductive landscapes. But they make a living doing that because, again, their diet, they can eat a wide range of things, broadleafs to hard mass, and we see them making a living in agricultural fields and everything. So I think it's important to say that up front, and that kind of gives some insight into why land management. Because, again, we could go to Ohio and look at the timber in some areas, not very good. It's been cut years and years ago, and just the undesirable species have come back. But a whitetail deer, you still see them living in that. Or let's go to Alabama, and you've got pine plantations everywhere. Really, pines, they don't offer a food source, yet we see deer living in them. So it's important to note that, yes, if you buy a property across much of the country, you can still see and experience deer hunting on that property because of their general species. But if you want to take it to the next level, if you want to improve that local deer herd, if you want to get more out of that deer herd, if you want to see them reach their fullest potential, then that's where the habitat manipulation, the land management, really comes into play. And you have to understand what it is that a deer needs, what is lacking in that neighborhood, and then make the changes, make the alterations to the habitat to provide the necessary habitat to basically take a deer, let's say from a high school athlete. We're gonna make a little analogy here from a high school athlete, a good player, an average person, up to an NBA star. We want to improve the habitat because that's where they live at 24/7. They are 100% dependent upon that. They can get by, again, in a city or in a suburb, but if we want to take it to the next level, we got to provide more in our habitat, and that's going to help get them from that high school level player up to an NBA level all-star. Does that make sense, Bruce?
Yeah, it does. And one thing people have asked me last few years, either at shows or, through the podcast is, I just got 40 acres. I just got 5 acres.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hunting 5 acres behind my house in Ohio, and it's a creek bottom, and every year I shoot a 150 plus deer. So, whoa, how does that work?
My first question is, does he want to sell? Wait, and that's a great point, and that's a common thing. And if you are that person, and a lot of our clients, we've been on properties that are 25 acres, 30 acres, 40 acres, 80 acres. It doesn't take 1,000 plus acres to really change or improve the habitat. You can make those differences on small acreage. You're not really looking at a per acre basis. You're getting down to the nitty gritty, the square footage of that property, and saying, how can I improve every aspect of this and provide security, provide cover, provide forage in that 40 acres? Because here's the deal, and I think if we look across much of the country, especially over past 500 years of this country, the productivity of the landscape has dropped way, way, way down. And that's because of, our influences on nature, so on and so forth. But if you're a guy who's got 40 acres and you do all this work, you improve the habitat, you provide the best cover, you provide the best forage through food plots and especially through native browse. I know we're going to hit on that later on, but you provide the best security in that area. What is a deer going to do? They're going to use the best resources in that area if they're secure. So if you do that work, you will see an improvement. You will see deer starting to prefer your property versus others, because the chances are that because not many other people are doing land management, they're not out there improving their land, that your land's going to stand out among the best in a neighborhood. So you can immediately control or have a better understanding and a better, thumbprint on that neighborhood with your property because you're doing something that no one else is doing. And if you can manipulate your habitat to make those changes, again, those deer or turkeys or quail or rabbit are going to respond positively to your work, whereas a neighbor may have a negative response because, again, those deer are spending more time on your property. Those turkeys are spending more time on your property because you're doing the work where they're not. Your habitat's getting better while theirs is getting worse. I think that's another point to make. Why land management? Land Legacy is blessed to be able to travel across the entire country, and we see every trip as we're driving or flying, whatever it may be, habitat grows, right? Over time, things mature. And a deer, specifically, the best habitat for them is early successional habitat. So that's young woody browse. That is broadleaf plants, stuff that you'll see commonly referred to as a weed. That growth, because of its level, it grows from 6 foot and down. That's where a deer can utilize that resource the most because it's accessible to them. It hides them, it's cover, and it's forage. But we look across the landscape, and when land isn't managed, that 6 foot tall growth in a couple of years is now 20 foot tall or larger. And at that point, the benefit just dives way down for the wildlife aspect of things. And if you don't do anything over time, your habitat is going to get worse growing season by growing season. So you've got to continue to maintain or manipulate the habitat so that you're constantly, if you will, hitting a reset button and keeping that vegetation, that growth, all the things that the deer are utilizing or turkeys are utilizing at a certain level so they can use it more. So like an oak tree, often refer to an oak tree, or let's say a hickory tree. Everyone thinks that the hard mass that tree is going to produce is really, really, really beneficial. And it is. Don't get me wrong, it is. It helps provide additional forage and gets fat on deer so they can make it through the winter. So that's important. However, there's a small time frame in which not even every single year that tree is going to produce that much forage for the deer. It's a small window. But if we have a mixture of those large trees and a mixture of the younger saplings, that woody browse is going to help carry them through the wintertime as well in a sapling form versus just that small window that the acorns are going to drop. So really, and I know I'm going to bring it up a bunch, but diversity in your habitat is key. And understanding that if I don't do anything, if I sit back and just let nature run its course, and many times nature running its course is in return making the habitat for game species, especially deer, again, because their resources need to be within reach for them, it's getting worse. So that's why habitat and land management is so important. And we need to understand that, again, it's going to take work, but it's going to take us, landowners, private landowners, or people who have permission to hunt a farm, a lease, to go in there with permission and manipulate that habitat to get the most out of a property that you hunt.
You mentioned something that kind of perked my ears. Optimum cover. That you said, weeds or forbs up to 6 feet tall are really good. 20 feet tall, they suck. And so, that tells me that I better be watching my land because as it grows up, maybe I had a fire, maybe I did some cutting, maybe I did all these different things. Maybe I hadn't done anything, and the land is just changing over by itself. But we want to manage it. We want to manage the land to its optimum carrying capacity, providing water, food, and of course cover. And I think we'll probably get into this in section boots on the ground, or in fact the plan. But let's just visit that a little bit because I think people miss that. Mm-hmm. When you were talking about it, because I missed it. I'm thinking of some places near my stand, one of my stands, and I'm going, Man, I better get in there and weed rock the crap out of there, put Roundup on it or something.
Yeah.
Well, really, it's beyond use.
Correct. There's a stage, and again, this is taking things a little bit more advanced. This is kind of 103, but the orientation and the layout of these features that we're talking about that are necessary to have on a property, the cover aspect, the proper cover, the way they're oriented and laid out throughout the landscape is important, because that's when, okay, I've got the, let's just say I've done all the habitat work I can, but I haven't laid it out in a plan. I haven't thought about how deer are going to utilize it. Now it's on my property, but again, I haven't placed them in the right areas, or I haven't thought about how deer should get from point A to point B. And really, there's no way for me as a hunter who wants to reap the rewards of the hard work that I've done to manipulate the habitat and offer this great resource. I haven't thought ahead and said, oh my gosh, well, I know that they're going from A to B, but the way it's laid out, I can't hunt that area because I can't get in there cleanly. So that's where it takes it really to the next level of, why is land management important? It's important to have the resources, but it's important to have the resources laid out in the right fashion. Because, I mean, let's face it, you, Bruce, as a hunter, you want to be successful. You want to see deer on your property. You want to have great hunts. You want to reap the rewards. And to do that successfully year in and year out, you have to be able to hunt the property. And again, offering great resources is number one to having those deer on the property. But then two is the orientation, so that we can go in, not disturb deer as we're hunting, and get back out without disturbing deer. So allowing the property to flow and setting it up ahead of time is number one. And then from there, doing that habitat work, you'll be able to see, okay, I've got bedding over here, I've got food over here, I've got enough room in between that I can get in and get out. And maybe it's the topography too. That's a huge thing that we deal with, is understanding how a deer is going to go from A to B, because now there's topography changes, or there's a hedgerow in crop country. They're going to use that hedgerow. We have to understand all this and go in and manipulate the habitat in a way that we can concentrate deer down to make our hunting overall more successful. So it's kind of a twofold thing, land management, right? We've got the importance of manipulating the habitat to keep the deer on the property and allow them to spend the most time on your property, because that's when they're the safest, right? You can't, once they leave your property, you can't really control or dictate what happens. You might have a neighbor that doesn't agree with your harvest recommendations, or have the same goals. You know, not saying they're right or wrong, but if the deer spend the majority of the time on your property versus theirs, you have more control over what's going to happen, what that age structure is going to look like from, you know, the point in which you start to 5 years down the road. So keeping deer on your property is really important. That's where the habitat manipulation comes in. But then the layout, the orientation, is that twofold process.
Because listeners, we are talking about, hunting deer. All this, and Matt and I have chatted about this. All this is about successfully hunting deer, or having the deer on your property that you want cousins, nephews, family members, guests or whatever to hunt your deer. And Matt just said something a while back, and I hope you've heard it, getting into your stand cleanly, because, it's fun talking to Matt, because I just play videos of my farm that I hunt, and I go, oh, yeah, that stand, I really need to move that stand this June, and because of past events, last couple of falls, I haven't been able to, but this year I will. And I'm not going to move it far. I'm going to move it 50 yards probably, just because of what you're saying, the growth, and it's covered up. It's not the same stand it was when I put it up. It's just not the same stand. So listeners, pick up that little tidbit about getting into your stand cleanly, because, and you use the word manipulating, and we can do everything right, but if we can't understand and get busted, and sometimes we do the silliest things. We park the truck in the same place, we open the gate at the same time at 5:05, dark 30, and then we walk the same 200 yards to our stand. The deer know that, folks. Just if you don't believe me, call Matt. He'll tell you why they know that. I know they know that because I've watched them.
Personal experience.
Personal experiences, and it happens to every single one of us. And you go, because all you have to do then, you've already busted, so you got to back out, wait a couple hours, especially if it's during the rut. You might go in. Today I won't. I'll go back to my truck, have some tea, take a nap, and go in at 10 o'clock. Just go to town, have breakfast. It's just what was there isn't there, and is he going to cycle through all that type of stuff? But getting into your stand cleanly is critical because there's so many things that attach to that. So as we go through this little mini series, think about the little nuggets and make a note and visualize your property, your stands, and say, I always have to walk around that big thicket. Well, do you want to continue that? Do you want to go the other way? I mean, that's how anal this whole land management can be, or do you want to just take out that mini thicket? Because what happens in that mini thicket, a fawn's laying there, a coyote's laying there, a rabbit's laying there. When they bust, you're busted. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, and as we go to different properties, Adam and I travel, we see stands that, unfortunately, we have to make the recommendation and build a case as to why, despite success in the past years, that a landowner probably shouldn't be hunting in an area that he is. And that is typically based on access. The access, the way deer are going to work a property, use a property, you're infringing on that. You're interfering with that as you travel to a stand. And our best suggestion is, okay, I understand that deer are coming through here. I understand that you've been able to be successful in the past. However, I'm not saying you can't hunt the deer that are using this area, but we need to find a different place to hunt these same deer. We need to find a place that's less intrusive. We need to find a place that you're not going to spook deer as you get to this next location. And the way deer are going to travel, they're still going to come past your stand. And honestly, we may be able to find 2 spots to hunt, one on either side of this great location. So we may turn one awesome location into 2 really good locations, but we have to change it because the access to get to that one awesome place is really good. Really bad. And I guess the other question that we pose, okay, so you've been successful at this spot, but how many times have you alerted deer? How many times have you made your presence in that area known? And what could have been a successful hunt didn't pan out because of you alerting deer in that area. So in the long run, in a probability standpoint, just saying in that location, by moving it, are my chances greater or my chances less? Because now, if we make that one stand and turn it into 2 different stand locations simply by changing where it's at, even though we're hunting the same deer, I might be able to hunt it now on a west wind and an east wind, hunt the same deer in that area, but do 2 different stands, if that makes sense, right? So now I can improve my odds because I have multiple winds to be able to hunt it on, and now I'm good. So I think it's important to understand that a great stand may not always be the best place to kill them. And even though you found success there in the past, changing your mindset of interfering with deer is going to possibly allow you to get more stands in different locations and increase the time that you can hunt that area, even though it's not in that one spot.
That makes a lot of sense. And folks, I just want this whole little series with Land and Legacy to make sense for you, to make you think. And I think that sometimes, I know in Wisconsin where I hunt, we hunted the same farm for, it's going to be 52 years this coming fall. So you get in a rut and you know where the deer are, you know where they should come through, you know where we've shot deer in the past, and you don't change it up to say, okay. And I love the thought there, you're hunting it mostly, it's going to be a northeast wind, but wait a minute, if I change it, I can kind of squeeze in 2 different winds and I'm hunting exactly the same deer. The deer don't change. The deer on your land are the deer on your land. You just, got to find out where they are, when they are there, and be there. I mean, it's pretty much that simple, but to get there is really hard.
and that means here in a land management standpoint of view, if you're a person who's got let's just say you've got wide open habitat, you've got big hardwoods, and you hunt it, and you can hunt deer successfully, but they're not staying on your property, and you're experiencing great deer movement. The first 5 minutes of daylight, or the last 5 minutes of barely getting to your stand during daylight hours, what you need to do is cut down the travel time from wherever they're selecting to bed at. You need to trim that down by offering really good bedding cover and closer proximity to your stand. And that's going to help get deer. They don't have to basically travel as far. They might be traveling or bedding off your property, getting up, traveling 400, 500 yards past your stand and just getting there before the end of shooting line. So in that instance, we need to do habitat manipulation and change where they're bedding and say, okay, I can still hunt that location, but now it's 250 yards from where they're actually bedding, because I'm creating a bedding area thicket, and I'm improving the habitat, and that's directly affecting my success as a hunter. So when those deer get up from their beds that are now on my property and only 250 yards away from my stand, they're going to get there a half hour before shooting light ends, and I have a better opportunity of seeing more deer because they don't have to travel just nearly as far. And it's just that simple mindset of, if I do work on my property and I do the right work, I can see a direct correlation to improving hunting on my property. And I think that's why land management is so applicable to everybody. And everyone can probably recall an instance or recall a stand where they experience movement like that. And we'll get into setting up a property later on. But now imagine if you're in a stand that is a great, maybe it's a great pinch point. There's some ridges that come together. Maybe there's a saddle, or there's a drainage behind you that forces deer up and around you. What happens now if prior to you doing any habitat work, there was, again, just open hardwoods? Everyone's probably, as a deer hunter, hunted open hardwoods. But imagine now if there's a bedding area on your right and a bedding area on your left that you've gone in and created, 1 to 2 acre spot, which doesn't take much time. Imagine now if you've got either one of those on both sides of you, and during the rut, what's a buck going to do? He's going to be checking those bedding area thickets because he's expecting does to be there. And now you're situated right in the middle as he's going from one to another, or back and forth, or you've got 3 bucks checking this one and they all walk past you to go and check this one. Or a buck has bumped a doe from the one on your right all the way and pushes it to the next closest cover where she can securely try and hide, right back in front of you to the one on your left. Whereas prior to doing that habitat work, you got a couple deer to funnel through. It was inconsistent. It didn't happen nearly as much. It wasn't as predictable. Yeah, sometimes they'd walk through there. That was the trail they would take. But really, now, if I do the habitat work, they've got a reason to walk past there. There's certain times of the year that spot's going to be that much better just because I did land management. I manipulated the habitat. I changed it to offer something that wasn't there prior. Again, that's going to directly affect your success in a positive manner from a hunting situation. So, again, that's why land management, no matter who you are, no matter what stage of a hunter you find yourself in, we all want to be successful. So getting out there and doing the right type of work can improve your hunting and will improve your habitat.
Yeah, great thought. Again, go back to hardwoods and place on our farm. I'm thinking of one place, and ravines and gullies and topography and everything, and side hills and food, everything's there, but there's no cover because I can see a quarter mile, but I love the fact of bouncing, having bucks, either scent checking, sight checking, or just, working their scrapes, or, and, have them bounce back, and you can put that at favorable wind directions. You can create, actually, and I love the word manipulate. You can create exactly the setup that you want, that you can hunt to be optimal.
It, especially in terrain areas. We hunt a lot in like the northern Ozarks. We've got terrain change. And you hear the positive, the negative, of hunting and terrain change. But if you manipulate the habitat in the right way and plan ahead and have a land management plan put together for you, and it's done right, hunting and topography, because deer take the path of least resistance, you can create some absolute dynamite pinch points and bottlenecks throughout that landscape if you lay out the habitat features in the right way. And we're right now working to develop a property, and it has got a lot of terrain change. And some of the places and some of the techniques that we're going to use are going to absolutely change the way deer move throughout that property in a positive way, because now we can access those areas, because we've got a timber operation going on right now. They're thinning the canopy, and we're actually situating specific clear cuts throughout these areas to funnel deer through a saddle or through a bench. That's going to really increase our success as hunters. And again, we're improving that habitat. We're going to have more place for fawns to nest, fawns to bed successfully, turkeys to nest successfully. Whereas right now, it's wide open timber. But if we don't break it up, if we don't offer what a fawn needs from when it's born to when it's hopefully a 4.5-year-old buck, why are we expecting it to reach its fullest potential when we don't even offer in that landscape the best resources? We don't offer everything it needs. Why are we expecting it to become a 160-inch buck? Why are we expecting it to be able to even reach an age of maturity when maybe a neighbor has better cover? They're going to start to use that. He might get shot earlier. So I feel like it's easiest for us as hunters to point the finger and say, oh, well, Joe Blow over there, he shoots everything that walks, or deer don't get to the right age class for me. It's not worth my time to hunt, or I just want to hunt mature bucks, but there's none around here. Well, my question to you is not why are you blaming your neighbor for doing that? He can hunt and honestly shoot whatever he wants. That's a legal buck in your area. My question to you is, the area that you're hunting, does it have everything it needs to? Why is that deer opting to spend more time with the neighbors than on your property? Does it have the right cover? Do you have the right food sources? Because if you do, then the chances are that he's not actually going to spend more time with the neighbors whose habitat is just like yours, maybe even a little bit better. If you're offering the best resources, he's going to specifically stay on your property because that's the best in the area. So I don't know, those are my thoughts. I think that's another situation that a lot of people can find themselves in. But instead of pointing a finger at someone else, I guess my question is, are you doing everything you can to your habitat to provide the most and the best in your area to allow you to reach your goals?
And that's a great segue into upcoming Boots on the Ground Part 2 with Matt Dye and Land Legacy. But, takeaways, folks, it's your land, and I like the word manipulate. You need to set that land up that Mr. Wonderful, his wives and his kids don't want to leave. No, I don't know what the carrying capacity of your 40 acres is, and we can get on that the next segment with Boots on the Ground with Matt Dye from Land Legacy. But, thinking about, what Matt said, take some notes and start really thinking, take out a notepad. And if you're not journaling about your land, you're not journaling about the changes to your land, the roads and the fires and the snowstorms and the tornadoes, all that stuff impacts your deer herd, every single bit of that. And if you're not paying attention to that, it's not going to ever be same old, same old. And guess what? Same old doesn't exist. And let's close on that, Matt.
I got one point to make. A lot of the habitat things or practices that most people try and implement on their property is just for the hunting season, and that might only be 3 months out of the year or 4 months out of the year. Where in reality, there's 9 more months, 8 more months in a year that a deer has to make a living on that property. So if you want your hunting season to actually be better, then you have to focus on those 8 or 9 other months throughout the year than just that small window that you're trying to make your property the best. If you want the overall herd to be larger, or you want those individual deer to be bigger, then you have to give them the resources from January 1 all the way through December 31st to make the biggest impact, not just a food plot situation or not just a small little, I don't know, say hinge cut that the deer are going to use from opening day of season to the end of season. If that makes sense. So that's where habitat manipulation really, really comes into large scale when we're focusing on the entire year versus just a hunting season window.
So land and legacy, land management, if you're serious about your land, how many acres you have, it doesn't really matter. You are a 365-day hunter. You really are. And if you're just a casual hunter and that's fantastic, and go up north or head to the uncle's farm and go sit in a tree stand and enjoy it and have a great time, that's great.
Oh, yeah.
And do it, and never even question this. And I guess, what we're trying to accomplish here is, even though you go to your uncle's farm as a casual hunter and you've shot bucks every single year, if you want to change something, if you want to enhance something for your kids, and land and legacy, comes together hand in hand with that, then that's where you really start thinking about, okay, what little things we can do. And we're not talking about buying John Deeres and backhoes and, and aerial sprayers. We're not talking about that at all. Everything you can do in as far as I'm concerned, in the whitetail world, for the average person, and I'm average, you can almost do it with your ATV and attached appliances or, tools.
One of my favorite tools, and that everyone can honestly either save up a little bit of money for or they already have, is a chainsaw. That chainsaw can provide forage. That chainsaw can provide cover, and it can completely, with you rolling up your sleeves and honestly breaking your back, you can completely change a property with a chainsaw. That's it.
Well, that's a great segue to the second segment of Land and Legacy and Whitetail Rendezvous, land management. And we'll be signing off here, and stay tuned for the next installment of Land and Legacy, land management. Hey, folks, a special edition of Whitetail Rendezvous is coming. I've asked 3 companies, Land and Legacy, Rackology, and Grandpa Ray Outdoors, to be part of a series on land management and food plots. So the next few episodes, about 18 of them, in fact, are going to be about land management or food plots. Why? Because people have been asking me a lot of questions. So I went out and chatted with some guys, and Adam Keith and Matt Dye from Land and Legacy is joining the crew, and at Rackology, we have Jason Obermiller and Eric Fitzgerald. And rounding out the team is Grandpa Ray Outdoors with John O'Brien. Each of them is going to bring a different flavor on what is land management, what are food plots, why you need them, the pros and cons. So listen up to the next series, and I sure hope you like them. If you like them, let me know. If you don't like them, let me know what I can do better. Thanks.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.